Hey guys, what a way to end of the year. So we're gonna have some videos that you guys can watch besides just looking at the papers, because I think looking at the papers is gonna be a hard way to figure out how to work the assignments. You can go back and review the videos as many times as you need to. Use the papers to help you out. If you have questions, have your parents contact me. We're gonna start with, each paper has examples. We're going to do 2 redos because I think you guys need to kind of strengthen that just a little more and kind of refresh from what we did right before spring break. So the first one looks like this: independent and dependent variables. It says redo assignment, example, page 1. So if you'll have those, get those out, you guys pretty much, I think you know what x coordinates and things and y coordinates are. Just remember that we have the x-axis. This looks like the bottom of an I. Those are going to be your independent variables. Then you have your y-axis, because it looks like a Y. Someone in the class said this one looked like an X. So this is your y-axis. It looks like the back side of a D, so these are your dependent variables. And just remember, you want to find your dependent variables first, because that's going to help you to figure out your independent variables. Your dependent variables are going to be your total. The total of everything, and it's going to be your data that you're going to be collecting. So like on the first one, it says Jameson runs M miles and burns C number of calories. What's the total data that we're trying to determine? That data is the number of calories burned depends on the number of miles that he ran. Number 2 says the more hours Brady practices, the better his test grade will be. So what's the total data that we're trying to find? The total is his total test grade depends on the number of hours that he was studying. You guys seem to do pretty good on that. On the back side, then your independent quantities are going to be the numbers that are listed on your x-axis. So these are your independent quantities. Quantities are numbers. So if I numbered this, it shows on the back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These are going to be your independent quantities. Your dependent quantities are going to be the numbers that are going up the y-axis. And they went up by 3s, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and 21. Now, so that you don't get confused, on the first one, first example they show here, their line runs all the way through each of these. That's why we're going to count all of these as the quantities. But if I said the x is 2 and the y is 6, the x is 4 and y is 12, 6 for the x and 18 for the y, then my quantities down here, it's only the numbers that I've plotted on my graph that count. This first one's a little deceiving because they've used all the numbers. But on this one, I only used 2, 4, and 6. Those are going to be my independent quantities. They're the only ones that were plotted. Over here, for my dependent quantities, they're going to be 6, 12, and 18. So this time I didn't use all of my numbers. I only used 3x and 3y. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Remember, when you have a chart, you have your x first and your y. So whatever I put here, these are going to be my x, my independent variables. These are going to be my dependent variables. If I said, like on number 5, this was number of pounds, and this is total weight. Just like I said over here, it's the total, the data. X is going to be your independence, Y are going to be your dependence. Same thing if my chart went sideways. These are going to be your X, these will be your Y. These are your independents, these are your dependent numbers. So 5, 6, 7, they want you to list the independent words. That's 5, 6, 7. Find the words and put them down there. They're not looking for numbers. on 5, 6, 7. On 8, this time they are wanting the quantity, the numbers that belong in each one of them. So now I have a second example sheet. It looks like this: independent and dependent variables. This is where you're going to have to remember to use your equations. So the only thing that they gave you on this paper was a baker can produce 40 cookies every hour. So we are trying to find the total number of cookies and then how long he can produce 40 for each hour. So you could write it like this: 40 times hour equals total amount of cookies. When you do that, you have the chart over on the side and it's split 3 times. You have your X, you have your Y, you have your process, which is A, which is going to stay the same every time. That's this number, 40 every single time. So if I spent 1 hour, 1 times 40, I'm going to have 40 cookies. If I spent 2 hours baking, I'm going to have 80 cookies. If I spent 3 hours, I have 120 cookies that I baked. 4 hours, I have 160 total cookies. So you need to pay attention to that. So on your assignment, it looks like this: Algebraic Representation Unit Study Guide. Yes, you've done this. Yes, we need to go over it again. It has 3 pages, a front, back, and then a front that goes with it. You need to make sure you're working these out. On 1 through 5, all you have to do is write, is it additive or multiplicative? Remember, if it's additive, you're adding or you're subtracting. If it's multiplicative, then you're multiplying. You just have to write these 2 words. Which word does it belong with? Y equals 7x. 7 times x equals y, so it's going to be multiplicative. If you have one like number 4 that shows a chart, and you have number of hours is H, total earnings is T, you're going to set up your formula just like what we've done before in class. Remember, we had X something A equals Y. Well, this is your X, this is your Y, and they're using H. So I have H something A equals, instead of a Y, they put a T. So I'm going to come down here, H something A equals T. Stick in my first H, 1 something A equals, my first T is 9. Can you do 1 plus something to give you 9? Yes, so let's try it out. Inverse operation, subtract 1 on both sides. 1 minus 1 is 0. Bring down your A. 9 minus 1 is 8. So plug it back in. 2, my operation was plus 8 equals 10. That's not what I got up here. So plus did not work. So that means you're going to have to start over then. So I have H is 1 something A equals 9. 1 minus something gives you 9. No, that doesn't work. So let's try times. So inverse operation of times is divide each side by 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. Bring down my A. 9 divided by 1 is 9. So let's plug it in now. H is 2. My operation was times. A was 9 equals 18. That works. Try the next one. 3 is my next H. My operation was times. 9 equals 27. That works. So your formula, or this is additive or multiplicative. So you're going to put that this is multiplicative because we're multiplying. Later on the back side, you're going to have to figure out the formula. So the formula is going to be H. What operation do we use? Times A was 9 equals T. So that's your equation. On 6, 7, and 8, you want to write your independent quantities and your dependent quantities. Remember, independent is is on the x-axis, dependent is on your y-axis. Looks like a y, looks like an x. Use only the numbers whenever they're plotting them on the line, where your point's at for independence, where your point's at for dependence. On the back side, it says the blank depends on the blank, which is an independent variable. So whenever you do this, remember you want to do the dependent words first. This depends on, and then write your independent words. Same thing for 10. Write your dependent words first. This depends on this. Then 11 through 14, this is where you're going to have to work out and write your equation just like we did there. On the last page, I've given you all of the equations and I've given you the descriptions. You need to plot them on the graph. You need to go ahead and finish out the table. So make sure you're doing this in order to figure it out. I've given you the equation. You just need to plug things in to figure out what your next numbers are going to be. Okay, so that's how you do our first assignment. Remember, you can watch this as many times as you want.